What's better off-road, old or new? Or should I say maybe old and even older? Today we have a 3rd gen 4Runner versus a 5th gen 4Runner, and we're taking both of them on the Ironclads Trail here in Colorado to see how they perform. Now there are quite a few differences between these vehicles, but they are similar in a couple ways. They're both body on frame. They're both independent front ends with solid rear axles. So the configuration is kind of similar on both, but I think especially with the difference of that using A-TRAC and this using a rear locker, we're gonna notice some pretty distinct differences there. Plus, I think some of our angles, because of especially the way that 5th gen is modified, there's gonna be some differences there. Now I'm coming up to the steps here, and to start things off, I am just running with 4-wheel drive low. I haven't switched on my rear locker yet. I'm gonna wait to do that until we need it, which might be sooner than I would have thought. So let me just bump up this. Oh, there we go. So just carrying a little bit of momentum coming up to some of these steps. You can still get over it without that rear locker engaged. So really not bad. Other thing that I love about this is how smooth it is over uneven terrain. Suspension is really good, even from the factory.
Kase needed a little bit of momentum in this. And we're running into the same issue as him pretty quick. I'm gonna hit the A-TRAC button, get that going. And you can see right away what a world of a difference A-TRAC makes. Basically, you just stay in the throttle for no more than like a second or two, and you can feel the wheels start to grip up and get traction where they need to go. And approach should not be an issue at all here. Yeah, look at that. Pretty easy. Sometimes these 4Runners feel a little anemic on the highway, but off-road, they have a really nice feel, nice and soft, and it's super easy to modulate throttle. So that did really well.
Now the 3rd gen 4Runner we have here is a relatively stock example that we bought for a series that's coming up. And it still has its factory running boards. It's still on stock suspension. However, thankfully we do have a pretty meaty set of Falken Wild Peak RT tires here. They're 265/75, so they're pretty decent size too. Thankfully, even from the factory, these 3rd gen 4Runners come pretty well equipped. And you can see we've got skid plates here onto the front. We also have a fuel tank skid. Now my biggest advantage in today's video is going to be what's behind this button right here, and that is the electronic locker. This was an option on these 3rd gen 4Runners, and thankfully this one has it. Of course, like any genuine off-road vehicle, we've got body on frame construction, and we have a true low range here. And all of the obstacles today we are going to be doing in low range. So here are the Razor Rocks. This is really our favorite feature here. It's kind of the distinguishing obstacle between vehicles that are semi-rugged and vehicles that have some real capability. It's always hard to tell on video how big these features really are, but I'm standing in this big dip that you get right before the Razor Rocks, which definitely makes this a much more difficult feature. If you look at it, I mean, the tops of those rocks are at least at my shoulder height. So it's a big feature. I'm going to nose up to it on the 3rd gen 4Runner here, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, these are very capable vehicles, so it's at least worth trying, but I don't want to break their 4Runner before the series. As long as my bumper clears it though with the rear locker, I think there's a solid chance of actually getting over this. All right. This is definitely the coolest obstacle on this stretch of the trail that we usually film at. But it's a little intimidating, especially when you're doing it in somebody else's vehicle. This 4Runner doesn't belong to me, and Tommy told me don't break the front bumper before the series. That's gonna be his job. So here, why don't I go ahead and kick on my rear locker, and it's showing that my diff is locked. So I'm just gonna crawl up to this to make sure that I don't smash the bumper. How's my clearance looking?
You might kiss your bumper. Go a little passenger. You'll start to walk up. Yep. That is so close. Cleared it by like an inch.
Yeah, factory bumper.
All right, start to straighten out. Driver.
So there goes the side step. If you take it at an angle, you won't hit your front bumper, but then you get tipped over like we are right now.
Yeah, Kase, you can give it a little move. Nice.
Maybe I can try and get a little more towards the tree.
Let's see, I think you're touching your hitch, but you might be able to momentum up. Yep, just your hitch.
There we go. All right. Well, it was a bit of a process to get over it, but it went, so pretty good. I mean, that's impressive. Come on. This is mostly a factory 3rd gen 4Runner, but, you know, it just some slightly knobby tires and that factory option diff lock.
That was some good driving.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the smoothest in the world, but yeah, we got over it. So that I'm pretty happy about that. Again, I mean, that's a lot of capability for something that's
pretty stock.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, you sat
stock
on your side step for a while, but that was better than a lot of the things we brought out here.
It went.
Now, this 2024 Runner started off life as more of a base SR5 model, but in one of our previous series, we did a lot to build this vehicle up. So it's got a 3-inch lift that's from Fox Shocks. It's using a lot of BDS suspension components like the control arms, and it's sitting on BFG KO2 tires with these pretty cool looking AEV wheels. Doesn't stop there though. We have lots of protection from C4, that's skid plates all the way underneath this vehicle. We have the C4 front bumper, which hides our worn winch very nicely, and same thing out in the back. So tons of protection and tons of capability. Now, this isn't a TRD Pro or a Trail Edition or anything, so I don't have a rear locker, but I do have A-TRAC, so a little bit of a different approach here. Kase and I have different off-road tech, but just like Kase, I do have 4 low, electronically controlled in this. You don't have an old school manual lever, but I'm gonna leave it in 4 low the whole time. Another big advantage of the newer 4Runner, I have CarPlay, so I can put Onyx Off-Road up on the screen here, keep an eye on the maps while I'm off-roading, and that's something Kase definitely can't do in the old one. All right, my turn to go up the Razor Rocks. I don't think that clearance is gonna be an issue. I don't think approach is gonna be an issue. We've got some pretty good angles on this, but my one disadvantage is weight. That old 4Runner is a lot lighter than this one. So yeah, A-TRAC is still on, still in 4 low, and we'll see how this does. We're nosed up to it. We're gonna start climbing now. I'm just gonna be real gradual with the throttle, nice and light. Figure it out. Come on, A-TRAC, figure it out. Give it one more nudge, kind of take a little bit of a different line here. Little tippy. This is Grant. It's 4Runner. He kind of does a lot of the back end stuff at TFL, and he's 10 feet in front of me watching me. So we're going as smooth as possible. Oh, that feels horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're way up there, dude. Yeah, you can see a lot of skid plate from here. I would probably back up from here. So I don't know, it's just, it's not worth rolling for this. This video is gonna make all of 30 bucks, so.
That's what you said last time we were up here.
Yeah, we don't need to roll a 4Runner for that. There we go. Yeah, I would see if you can maybe take it a little straighter on so you're just not getting pitched over. All right, yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so I think if you steer passenger...
I feel tippy.
Maybe back up a little bit, go driver. Yeah, see if you can go a little more passenger.
I feel like I'm gonna roll, dude.
Then I'd say back down. Yeah, I mean, you can probably go closer to the tree still. Yeah.
I'm so terrified of getting thrown into this tree. I'm close to it.
Well, that's one of the big differences too, is that with a rear locker, I can come up slow and controlled and very smooth, and the A-TRAC works, but when it grabs, it goes.
You know, the biggest difference I'm noticing is you don't give a rat's ass if you crash that into a tree, and this is a lot more expensive, and I definitely care if I crash this into a tree.
Well, ideally I would like to not crash that into a tree either, but I think another big difference too is that that 3rd gen 4Runner weighs as much as 1,000 pounds less, and it has the rear locker, which just makes this obstacle in particular, with as articulated and as much as you unweight your wheels, makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I mean, this definitely has the angles to do it. It's more the traction because of not having that rear locker that's an issue. And that doesn't mean that it can't still do it. It just means you are increasing the risk to a point where, you know. Yeah.
Could it do it? Probably. It's a risk I'm just not willing to take today. So we're gonna back it around and do the bypass.
Can't state enough just how comfortable these are to drive off-road. It's not the most exciting vehicle in the world to drive on-road, but off-road you really see where these shine. I mean, they're just fantastically capable, like we've already shown, but the biggest thing really is, too, how comfortable they are. I mean, cruising up this very uneven terrain, you can see how little I'm getting thrown around. This is about as comfortable as you can be over this kind of terrain, even by modern day standards. And I'm gonna go ahead and switch my locker on, there we go, because I'm coming up to a rock where we've seen a number of vehicles get stuck, but rear locker engaged, no problem whatsoever. And we've got an option here between truth or dare. Of course I'm gonna take dare, because this 4Runner so far has made mincemeat out of all the obstacles that we've hit on the trail. And yeah, it just continues to cruise right up. Traction is not gonna be an issue for this. Clearance is not an issue. Yeah, really impressed overall. And also, I mean, these Falcon Wild Peak tires are really good all around. These are some of the more aggressive RTs. We've done a lot of testing with the AT3s, but these RTs seem to be pretty monstrous. It's doing a lot for this right now. I also absolutely love how narrow this vehicle is. The footprint of it is a lot smaller than the 5th gen, which is a nice thing to have when you're squeezing between trees. I mean, 5th gen will fit through there too, but it just gives you less to worry about. I also don't have a nice expensive paint. It's just a vehicle that I'm not stressed about.
All right, and now it is my turn to come up this truth or dare section. We're gonna go up the harder side as we usually do. One thing I will say, super comfortable out on the trail, and I know this has a really advanced, expensive Fox suspension system on it. That has a lot to do with it, but these old 4Runners, and I say old 4Runners because they're actually pretty old. These have been around a long time, even though it's the newest 4Runner you can get. They're using pretty old technology, and they are pretty squishy and pretty comfortable, which gives you a really good off-road ride when you're on the trail. Now we're coming up to this big boulder here. Kase went right over it with his driver's side tires, so I'm gonna do the same. I just enabled A-TRAC. Shouldn't have much of an issue. Getting up and over this. Coming up to it right now. And yeah, it figured it out. But that's the thing with A-TRAC, is you kind of got to keep your foot in the throttle and wait for things to start to happen, which when you're going up a mild incline like this, no problem. But you know, if you're on a really articulated section like the Razor Rocks, that's when that becomes a little bit more of an issue, and I start to wish I had that rear locker that Kase had, because with the locker, you just enable it, it's locked up, ready to go. You don't need to wait to lose traction or anything. The other disadvantage is the sight lines out of this. It's much easier to see out of the old 4Runner. This new one's got a much bigger hood, so I kind of have to dance around in my seat a little bit, make sure I know really where I'm at, popping my head out the window a little bit to get a good view. But other than those really minor things, it's doing really well. And A-TRAC works wonders as long as you're not in a tippy position. And it's not like you can't get one of these 4Runners with a rear locker. You definitely can. This just isn't one of them.
Now we have the Sawtooth. This is our final obstacle, and not an especially difficult thing to get over necessarily. It just depends on what line you pick. And the goal here is to see how far left you can go without bottoming out your breakover angle. Now I'm taking a pretty aggressive line here. I don't think this is gonna work out. But maybe it will. Did I
Come
dabble?
further left.
Okay. Huh. Better than I expected, actually. No. This is definitely more aggressive right here. Oh.
You got that.
Wow. So I think part of what's helping this is it's not a super long wheelbase vehicle. Oh yeah. So now I'm touching. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty far over to the left here. There's a lot of off-road pickup trucks that we've tested that have not been able to come this far to the left because they're especially long wheelbase. So let me see. Sorry, running boards. Let me see if I can just put the front end a little right to get up and over.
Nope.
Nope. All right. Oh yeah. And a little further still. All right. So we want to mark. Basically, you want to grab one of them rocks.
Yep. Put that right there. So that's lined up. Edge of this rock. Outermost portion of the tire.
Cool. Yeah, it's a really not a bad performance here from the 3rd Gen 4Runner. It's better than I was expecting on that feature, and really very good overall.
All right, Sawtooth obstacle in the newer 4Runner. I think we can just right off the bat go a little further left than Kase started out with. We're not quite as far left as he was able to get, but let's see. I think we've got better angles than him.
Oh yeah, you got it.
Easy? Yeah. And look at my sliders compared to the way you had.
I know, yeah. A little less painful to rub on the rocks.
Uh-huh.
Come in slow. We're going though, I think. It's close, but you still that clearance, so I think you can come, you can come a little bit further.
Okay, let's keep trying.
So come in slow. It looks like, it's going to come down on the skid there. So, I'd go back right a little bit. Yeah, that's getting pretty close, and it's definitely further over. I mean, I think it proves a point. A 5th gen with a 3-inch lift.
Yeah,
it has better breakover than a factory height.
Exactly. Yeah, that's got a little extra ride height because of the tires, but this has a 3-inch lift, and there's not much you can do to compete with that. So, still, I mean, both of them pretty good. Short wheelbase trucks, the way to go.
Yeah.
So we're leaving the trail. We noticed some clanking.
Yeah, pretty loud too, especially when we go over certain bumps. And so we took a look underneath, and we figured out that the top of the right rear shock has come disconnected, which I guess kind of makes sense because we were hanging that wheel pretty far, so it was definitely putting pressure on that shock because there's no limiting straps or anything here. So I mean, that's part of wheeling in an older vehicle. If you don't go through and replace a bunch of stuff, and then eventually you're probably going to have some failures like that, taking it out on a trail. It's just kind of part of it.
Yeah, so the guys leave for Moab in 2 days. So
to film the series around these vehicles. So basically, we need to haul this thing on over to the shop and get them to fix that up. So what do you think, Alex? If you had to pick between the two of them, which one would you go for?
You know, it's a hard choice. There is a massive price difference between the two.
It's true.
I think if I needed like one vehicle to get me to work, go do fun things on the weekends, go skiing, and go off-roading, the new one, if I were going for a dedicated off-roader to just take on the trails, old one all day long.
Yeah, because the old one, I mean, it really showed how good they are here today, and definitely having that rear locker makes a big difference. A-TRAC will get you 90% of the places that you want to go on some of these more mild trails, but yeah, when it comes down to it, that rear locker just gives you an extra layer of control, and that's really nice when you're trying not to crunch a body panel. But I agree, the 4Runner, the 5th gen is just a lot nicer to drive on the road, and the 3rd gen, I mean, I like old vehicles, but it's a little anemic, and it's not the greatest thing on the street.
The 4Runner's cool though. It's one of like the only off-roaders you can buy, one of the only new vehicles you can buy that feels like an old vehicle and has it's like past the point of just being outdated, and it's now in that classic era of like being just super reliable and unchanged. So that's why you might want to buy the new 4Runner, because get it while you can before they replace it with something super modern.
Absolutely, and let us know in the comments down below what you guys think. Which one of these would you want to drive home in? And go to alltfl.com for even more videos, off-road, and everything else.